Hi, guys. Can you hear me? Okay. We got Melissa now, which is great. So we can start. Um,
Tom, I'm here. It's
Mel-
Melissa.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you. Sorry for that. So we're going to switch immediately over to the PowerPoint in full screen mode. Please let me know if you guys are having trouble seeing that. But you should have it up on your screen now. Does everybody see the PowerPoint? If I don't get any no's, I'm going to continue on. Okay. Um, This is the National Text Platform Opioid Text Program meeting, February 7, 2019. We have a wonderful agenda here. Going through today's presentation will be a delight. Everybody's got audio, so they can all speak whenever they want. And there are designated segments for that sharing to happen as everyone's got their parts known to them, comfortable with them, and ready to deliver. So, what we're going to find today is that a couple of housekeeping things. I'm going to keep the meeting rolling along as the time manager, I guess, if you will, and I will also be able to uh, move the slides along in accordance with your wishes. There's been an exciting addition to the Washington uh, uh, slide. That's one of the first ones coming up. And we're going to have something just amazing to show you if the audio will cooperate. So, with that, I wanted to please just establish that we're going to follow the agenda that was sent around to everybody. And as this was the first topic in the agenda, I want to pause for a moment here and say it's just terrific to be at this place where we have um, data coming back from all of our pilot sites in a way that we could have only wished for so many months ago, and establish that the information is available for you all. And these URLs have been provided to you, but they can always be provided to you, where you can go and you can get to your data in any easy way you'd like. And as such, when you isolate your data and you manipulate the URLs where this tool is, you'll be able to select it in ways that are consistent with your needs. Um, it's terrific to have everybody up and running. It's wonderful to see that all of this has been now utilized by all the sites. So congratulations, everybody, on that. It's a big job, well done. Um, when you isolate this data down to its granular level, you can pull it by state, you can pull it by county, you can pull it by zip code. All of these web utilities are available for you with some really good sorting and filtering. The other thing that's available for you all at this moment is the way by which to download or export your data in total. Again, at another web utility. The idea there being is to set a date range and to have a beginning and end date, and then pull down to your agency, as is the case here, Washington. Simply hit export, and you'll get an export data success, and your data will come to you like this in a spreadsheet, so that here in New Jersey, you can see a couple of days worth of um, transactions, engagements, as you will, to the point where it has been now made available. Um, Tim, I know that as you have gone through the early data and the outcomes from the early data, you put together a tremendous presentation in Prezi that we're going to want to run as we can. But why don't you take us through um, that, if you don't mind?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we've actually had quite a bit of a success, I think, with early success with the project. This is the background. Right about the time that we were invited to join this project, we received information from, we have what's called Accountable Communities of Health in the state of Washington, which is part of the Medicaid transformation work. And the north central part of our state, which is kind of along the Canadian border, we have a lot of rural communities up there, and counties, was putting out an RFP for actually a rapid opioid response grant. So they're looking for like quick projects that could, the innovative projects that can be done to address issues of opioids. And so we actually, the timing is right, and we actually proposed the text platform to them, and actually received an award, not a huge one, $10,000, and it was not for a long period of time, just 6 months, but we were successful in getting that grant and then actually conducting the work, and actually have some data that I can share with you today. How it actually worked is and actually I could probably just go into the Prezi and do this and maybe come back and talk about.
Let me do that. I'm going to do that right now. Just a moment, please. I'll switch over.
Can you go ahead and expand that to the window? There at the bottom right-hand corner. There we go. It's supposed to get bigger too. I don't know what happened there. I guess you go back. I don't know. That's kind of weird. I don't know why it's doing that.
Yeah, it could be that it's fighting with the web frame.
Probably, yeah. Just go ahead and go back to the right other way. Yeah, we'll do a smaller view of it. That's fine. Okay.
Now the audio took a little while to come up the first time, but the audio on this is just absolutely lovely. I mean,
yeah.
From a public service announcement standpoint, I'd love to see if we can get that to play.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and go back to the beginning of the frame, or the first frame, and I'll just talk through it. So anyway, as part of the communication with partners that we've been pulling into the project, developed a Prezi and to explain just the project itself. And I took a lot of the information that was sent out early on when this began, and then I just added to it over time. So again, this is what I present to our partners and people that want to learn more about the project. Go ahead and click to the next slide. Talk about the participating states that are involved in this. Just go ahead and go to the next slide. And I love this quote, which was presented earlier on, and it actually has a lot of weight when I talk to folks in the medical field. And it's just that that there's been some research done that shows messaging really does help in prevention. Go ahead and move on. So I'll just give a little example or information about how it works. Keep going. We all know about this information, so we'll just keep going. I want to get to some of the materials. Talk a little bit how it works. Give examples of the 4 areas of the questioning that's presented. Talk a little bit about the flow chart of messaging. So again, these are all materials that I just incorporated from early on. Examples of some of the actual text messages. The flow. And one of the things that people really like too, and we got some data from Tom, is the actual survey responses after the 6th message that goes out, or the 6th-day contact. Go ahead and keep going, Tom. This is more information I share with folks about what it looks like on a phone. And again, this is stuff came out. This is what I really want to show. So we actually developed marketing materials. We have
Here it goes, Tim. I can hear it now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Opioid addiction can happen after just 5 days, and it kills 91 Americans per day. Join us in the fight. Text opioid to 898-211, 898-211. Available resources are sent right to your phone. Standard text messaging rates may apply. This is a public service announcement brought to you by Washington 211.
So yeah, we were able to.
Everybody heard that.
Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I started taking Oxy when I hurt my back.
I'm going to try to turn the audio down now so that you can talk again, Tim. Just a moment, please.
I didn't know how far I would go to get more.
But it's a beautiful public service announcement. Let me go forward to the next slide. I'm sorry. This is a little clumsy, but here we go. This is the data that you saw from the from the PowerPoint. Oops. Right, okay. You direct me, Tim.
Yeah, so again, just going back to the last slide, you don't have to go back, but we developed some rack cards and some posters that match that using some of the branding that was done in Florida and use that for our marketing purposes, and then also that produced the PSAs. And we were able to get quite a few. What we did is we got the standard free PSAs, and then we bought additional PSA times on local radio stations. So we were able to get out even more during that time period. And then, so again, just going back into some of the actual data, for the 6-month project, we had 98 contacts or engagements. And I can go a little bit more into the details of that. We had 30 different, so we had 98 engagements came from 30 different unique phone numbers. Majority of those texts were made between the hours of 12 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., with about 48% coming in after 5 p.m. 31 text requests were for self-referrals to services. 6 were for disposal of medication. 9 were for treatment inpatient detoxification. 3 were for treatment for opioid detoxification, and 12 were for treatment for outpatient facilities. We actually had a total of 17 organizations in 11 different counties in the state of Washington were referred to for services. Only 2 services of those 17 were actually located in the county where we did the project. That just shows you how rural that community is and how lack of resources they have. So a lot of the services for opioid addiction, they have to leave the county to get those services. Part of that too is we contracted with the public health district up there for a part-time person, and they were doing during that 6-month period, they were doing 10 hours of outreach each week. So we had 114 public outreach activities that were recorded and handed out over 6,000 materials during that time period.
This is so impressive. Guys, I want you to know that the link for this is on the PowerPoint, and a little bit more housekeeping. The PowerPoint is in a handout on the web frame. Tim, do you want to, I'll go back to the main PowerPoint and summarize now for us.
Sure.
Here we go.
So I kind of went through our early program data and outcomes, outreach and deployment. And our plans going forward is we applied they had another grant opportunity that came out for another 6 months. And we applied and got that grant as well. It's again, only $10,000, but we're just doing the same project, but expanding to 3 additional counties up in north central Washington. So we'll be actually having a larger reach. That project started January 1st. And so we've got some initial data. Overall, our total touches now it's 4 counties, is 123. I just pulled up the data this morning. So we're starting to get some early work going on in those other 3 counties. And that's without even using the PSAs yet. We're still scheduling the PSAs.
Kip, could I ask a question about this Prezi and this beautiful presentation? They only heard the catch-up audio on that one part of it, but is there audio all the way through it?
No, that's the only place I threw in audio. I haven't put any words to it.
That's the only place. Okay, so it works like a PowerPoint, but when you get to the PSA, it plays that beautiful soundtrack. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, in Prezi's, I use those for presentations because it's more, you can talk from it better than a PowerPoint. So that's why there's no sound to it beyond just the PSA.
Well, the link's there for everybody to take a look at. I was really impressed when I saw it. I'm going to slip forward now to the idea that Tim, and thank you so much. There'll be another slot here for you, as you know, that there is a process that we went through, in essence, to get everybody to join and be available on the platform. As we wrote responses to the different database files that we got out, if they came from icarol, if they came from VisionLink, if they came from Resource House or Refernet or Service Point, we learned how to transform that data to make it universally available on the national platform. and this is true with opioid, or this is true with any of the issues that are going to be dealt with. We now have personnel here to stand at the ready to help sites with the updates and the new sites coming on board. We also have captains, if you will, or guides at the different sites that represent the different main CRMs. And Charlene in Wisconsin has just gone through a statewide implementation. And I thought, Charlene, if you would talk just a little bit about that and then the other points that we talked about, that would be terrific.
Sure. Hi, everybody. And thank you. We're new to this group, so apologize for anything that is a newness comment versus those of you that are seasoned. But in Wisconsin, as Tom just said, we went through a process of kind of trying to streamline how we could do regular updates to the system, and using our, in an efficient way, cleaning up our data that comes out of our database system. So we go through a basic export of data, whatever the data that aligns to this platform, and then we use an external business analytic tool similar to Tableau. Name is Domo. I think you could probably do something similar in any kind of tool like that, where we've created a workflow that essentially, with a click of a button to export it from our system and then a click of a button to import it back into this analysis tool, we're able to create an export file that cleans up the data the way that it needs to be presented to prevention pays. And that has worked very easy for us. And we were able to overcome some of the limitations of the file coming directly from our vendor.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. There's really a lot of good, solid work that's been done on your team's side, Charlene, to make that all happen, and it's been very, very good. I know that sites like Maine and other sites that had VisionLink early, I know there's been a change in Maine, but got data exports that needed to be reinterpreted. But in the Maine, you were able to, and I don't mean in the Maine now, Maine, but I mean in the Maine, you were able to do it. You said it was good, and that's great. We're gonna in this part hear from a couple of other folks that have done that same kind of work. But the point that we'd like to try to make is that this is a two-way process, that we work with you and you work with whatever software and or vendors that we need you to work with so that we get this done. Iowa has gone through a similar process with icarol, and I'm wondering if we could get a report in, Melissa, on how that went.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. And this is Melissa, and I'm the director of the 211 for United Way of Central Iowa. And we do have Amanda on the line with us kind of as the captain, since she is my database manager. And so I'm going to let her talk a little bit about how it's worked with icarol and importing. So go ahead here, Amanda.
Go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me talk a little bit today. For any of you that use icarol, you may be familiar with our resources database, where you can put in a single taxonomy term, have it search for any resources with that taxonomy term attached, and then you can create a report. Now, that's how I first ran everything for Tom, until I found out that there is a way that you can actually create a specialized export in icarol that you can create into either a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. That has very much streamlined the whole process, because you get the chance to put in what data elements you want icarol to pull for you in the report itself. So you can set up the name, the description, the hours, all of that just from this specialized export. And once you get all that data, or all the data elements that you need in your report, all you have to do is simply change out the taxonomy terms, run a new report, and there it is. And that can all be sent directly to Tom just as is, without having to clean it up. So there's really two ways to do it. And if anyone ever has any questions, you can always get a hold of me and ask. I'd be happy to help.
That's the way we want it to be too, because when you get the help from the when you make it two-way, when you working with us and you're working with the CRM vendor, it turns out to be a good process and get a good report out. Makes this program not only easy to manage going through time, but available to the field, which is the exciting announcement that's coming up at the end of this. But again, with all these captains in place, we feel like we've got a good handle on this process, this very important process, which is to establish that we can take updates from you easily and we can bring new sites on board easily and have the power now to do that work together, stronger, because we're together than ever as being separate. The other really important, thank you, Amanda. The other really important news to get to today, some of, is the idea that this program can now be localized and customized to meet needs in communities that are different than the out-of-the-box national program. And while the out-of-the-box national program will be maintained, because you'll see it's one of our main objectives to have a national footprint as we go through this, you'll see that. But that it can be localized, like was the case in Iowa. In Iowa right now, we're at that final stage where we've just gone from local in and around Des Moines Central to statewide with all of the sites participating. And we also found some clever, interesting information about the crime reporting taxonomy. And we've amended to include a broader swath of resources in crime reporting. It was also discussed in Iowa that if we could expand the program to meet needs that also included other substances, that would be very worthwhile. And Melissa or Amanda, if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Sure. This is Melissa again, and thank you, Tom. So with the introduction of the opioid texting platform, our health officer and myself went and spoke with some of the governor's staff. And one of their things was, do we have to be so specialized into opioids? And I know, for Iowa, it's a little different where we lag behind on trends and things like that come through. So for us, we're seeing more of meth in Iowa versus the opioid side of, the pain pills and those kind of things. So for us, they wanted to know, could we, instead of doing opioid as the keyword, would we be able to open it up and look at it as substance abuse or substances in general? And what we found through, Amanda, we were kind of the guinea pigs for the state. So we took our 15 counties first and did the importing of our information. And what we're finding is the majority of the places that do substance abuse treatment also do opioid. So it wouldn't be that hard of a thing to do an actual substance abuse hotline and not just an opioid. So those are the different areas that we're kind of expanding to look down in the future. Another way that we've looked at it, and I know there are other states out there that are doing it, is the human trafficking hotline. In East Central Iowa, that's a bigger deal than it is here in Central Iowa. And so over there, they've worked really closely with a couple of their groups on the human trafficking. They think this would be a great opportunity to use as a keyword, since people that would feel more comfortable texting into an actual hotline. Amanda, do you have anything else to say there about how, moving forward and finding the different areas such as the crime witness?
Well, the reason we kind of expanded on the crime reporting, we have a lot of our sheriff's offices or our municipal police or city police tagged with just those taxonomy terms, sheriff or municipal police. Now, the reason we don't have them tagged with crime reporting taxonomy, because it's almost double indexing if you look at it a certain way. It's common knowledge that you can go to any police department or any sheriff's office to report a crime. We don't have to tag that with the taxonomy term because it's implied. So that's why we talked to Tom about adding those two taxonomy terms to the whole crime reporting taxonomy term genre, for a better word. That way it does hit those resources that are common knowledge to go to report crimes. So that's way, in another way, we're going to avoid double indexing in the database itself.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Okay, and that kind of customization is emblematic of other kinds of customizations, such as the kind that in New York, we actually routed people to services that were highly prioritized. The idea there being is that, and Kelly can talk a little bit about this, in keeping access, sending people to access points that are most appropriate is really at the heart of that. And wanting to do that always is important. And Kelly, why don't you talk a little bit about the political environment you were in too?
Sure, thanks, Tom. So in Western New York, we were also experiencing a huge jump in deaths from opioid overdoses. And our county executive stood up his own crisis addiction hotline. So it was not a service that was created in conjunction with 211, much to our disappointment, but it was a separate thing that was created with lots of funding, as these things are sometimes. So for us to introduce the opioid texting program into the community and to not get substantial pushback from the politicians and the political will in this one county that we serve, which happens to be the population center, we needed to figure out a way that we could make sure that basically with every set of referrals that was sent to people who texted from zip codes in our county, they were also getting a referral to that addiction hotline. So we were, able to work with Tom and make sure that we had that one resource, even though it was just, I don't think it was even that taxonomy term was even included in the original set of terms to be exported and included in the opioid text program. We were able to work with him to say, hey, this is something that's politically important in our community for this and is needed for this to be successful and accepted in our community. And we were able to do that. So thank you very much, Tom, for making that accommodation.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Tanya Ko was also very concerned about channeling people to access points that are, going to give service to those folks that are going to them, and that knowing that on a local level was something that all sites really did well. So establishing that as a component of this and a part of the personalization is a really important component. We understand that, and funneling people to the right place, right? Getting them into the right pockets, as was the case in New Jersey as well. And in New Jersey, what we have is we have intermediaries that really are using the service to do that. In Louisiana, and you'll hear from Melissa a little bit more about this, and in Louisiana, Lavondra, as we're moving forward into 2019, we're going to have some discussion on the next slide coming up. So let me go to that just one moment, and I'll switch to that slide. This is kind of a discussion area where we'd like to talk about programs. And Janet and Lavondra and Tim, you've given us a lot already. And Kelly, as you have a program ad here, can we start with South Dakota and hear just a little bit about the funded programs in 18-19 and where you're going?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Betsy Schuster. I'm with the Helpline Center in South Dakota. We provide 211, but we have partnered with the state of South Dakota. They want to start a separate opioid resource hotline. And so we actually answer that line through the Helpline Center. And so on the screen, there's one image of some of the marketing that's taking place. And the state has really embraced it and is really excited about as we continue to promote more. And so this card is just a snapshot. There's also other markers that are in print right now, so unfortunately I don't have a copy of them that explains what the opioid texting support is, but we have found great support through state partnership to realize the importance of what we do from a 211 perspective and how that also benefits the work. So that, and then the other thing we're working on is an opioid care coordination program where we are working, we are not the therapist or the counselor, but more of that overall encourage or supporter, a follow-up program. Calls when someone is referred to the program, we help them in their wellness journey, whatever that may be, to encourage them to continue with their treatment plans, or continue to whatever that is. Because other follow-up projects that we realize there's such a benefit to that telephone assurance, that outside support, and so that's the other piece that's coming is the opioid care coordination program that we're working on to do more of an intensive follow-up with individuals going through that process. And Janet, our
important role in, I'm sorry, I was just going to chime in. That text looks like it can play an important role in follow-up, as you know, and certainly I didn't mean to step on that. Go ahead.
Well, Janet, our CEO, is on the line as well, so I don't know if she wants to add anything else to the work that we're doing.
No, Betsy, I think you did a great job explaining that. We are happy to partner with the state. We've partnered with them on several other projects over the years, including some suicide prevention work, so it was a nice extension of that relationship.
Oh, gosh, thank you so much. We mentioned, Lavondra, that you were looking to pick up and run with this as a statewide program too. Do you want to tell us about your plans going into 2019?
Sure. This kind of, the state of Louisiana got about $10 million from SAMHSA to work on opioid addiction issues, and part of their funding required that they have an access point to address opioid use with teens. And we actually launched a teen crisis text line about 4 years ago. We're a 211 and part of NSPL, and we do have other phone, text, and chat crisis line services throughout the state. So they asked if we would rebrand or add branding to our crisis line to include opioid addiction. And in that discussion, they had heard that we were part of this beta project on the Opioid Text Program, and wanted to know if we were statewide with it. Well, we're one of 3 call centers, 211 call centers in Louisiana, but we're the only blended center. And the other centers were not looking to really do the opioid text program at this time, even though they are doing the text 211. So I talked to them to see if it was possible, would it be okay with them if if our center did the statewide opioid text, we could get their text messages, and they were all in agreement for that. And I talked to Tom to see if that technology-wise is possible, and it is something that's possible, so that they can have their own text 211 program, but anything that where opioids entered would come to us. So we're in the process of going back to the state and saying, yes, this is possible, and setting up for them to fund this, and working with Tom to make all that happen.
That's great, Lavondra, thank you. And it's exciting times with the work that you're doing there and some of the enhanced work that you're doing with automated surveys and data collection. We'll come back to that a little bit later.
Okay.
Tim, you told us a lot about where you were going. Is there anything you can think to add at this point?
Well, yeah, actually, we had a legislator who is very big advocate for drug addiction and opioid resources. And so she's actually sponsored a bill for us to do a demonstration project working with, we have what's called the Washington Recovery Helpline, so it's our statewide drug line. It's not a two-in-one. It's not a two-in-one line, but it actually is operated by the organization that runs our King County 2-in-1 services. So we already have that partnership with them. But this would be about $300,000 grant over 2 years to demonstrate, how 2-in-1 can be the single point of access for resources related to opioid addiction. And we would partner with the resource line to actually take those calls.
Well, and through the texting platform, should you care to, this is something.
Platform would be part of that.
And I was thinking that the Indiana story is interesting here, as we've set up others to be able to actually query 211 data and use text as a means of delivery. That's all within your doing, Tim. We're going to hear a lot about bridge building here coming up from Melissa. But if ever there's a situation like that, where we can go to people in the community with your ability to not only provide direct service, but your ability to integrate, so to speak, and work through the systems of care. We're excited to talk to you about that, and the Indiana example is one that I'd love to share with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Tim, so much. Yeah, and then Kelly, back to you on discussions from Western New York on the 211 Gave Me Hope promotion.
Sure. Yeah. So our local newspaper was at a point where they were publishing a resource directory as a supplement to the Sunday paper. So they had, someone from the paper had been in Ohio and saw a resource guide that their community had produced. So that person came back to us and said, we're producing this. We'd like you to submit some advertising for it so that we can promote 211 as a way to get assistance. So this was right around the time that we were launching the opioid texting program in Western New York. So we were able to modify some of the 211 materials to include the texting, and got a grant from our local foundation and some match money from our local United Way to be able to put a full page ad in this resource directory that promoted the opioid texting platform. And what I think the production was about, I think around 20,000 copies of this resource guide were produced. So it had some significant coverage.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing on that slide. Let's move to the next slide here. Now, as you know, we are busy building programs all the while. And while the opioid program represents a huge bit of dedication, and we've got a big strategy going forward in 2019 that we're going to talk about here in just a moment, there are many new programs that are emerging using this basically same type of architecture. So, Marioli, if you could tell us a little bit about human trafficking and what you've done, that would be terrific.
Sure. So this is Marioli from 211 in Atlanta. So what we did here was we decided that like Tom said, the format for the opioid program could work for the human trafficking, and we brought in some of the partner agencies that deal with human trafficking victims, and we presented it to them, and they all agreed that this would be an additional tool that would be very useful for anybody, victims or anybody that's concerned, to be able to use. And so I went into the database. I made sure that all the taxonomy codes that were for human trafficking were aligned with the services that we needed to, that we were listing on the UCAN. And then we came up with the keyword UCAN, and that stands for You Connect at Now, UCAN. And so anybody can text UCAN to 898-211. It is just like the opioid is automatic, and it sends the referrals about human trafficking, whether it's a victim or somebody that's concerned or somebody that just wants to learn the signs. And after we just launched it on last month on the 14th, and it's been used quite a bit already. The partners tried it, they all tried it out, and they all really liked it. They all thought that it was very easy to use. The answers they come quick, and so like I said, this is just another tool that we're putting out there for the human trafficking.
Oh, Marioli, thank you. And wonderful it is too to have that kind of community input. You know, you're building bridges with people, you're promoting 211, you're doing all the things that, you know, big goal of this project is to do all that, you know, and establish that we've got great service going out there. In Brevard, we have one now. Thank you, Marioli. In Brevard, we have one now called Be the One, which is crisis intervention and suicide prevention. And Libby, if you tell us a little bit about that, that would be so great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. In case you're wondering, Brevard is a county in Florida on the East Coast, and we're where the Space Center is, if that helps you kind of visualize it. But we were approached a few months ago by our substance abuse and mental health funder. They had some dollars and wanted us to pilot a telephone-based care coordination program for youth at risk of suicide. They've done it in behavioral health, like in inpatient settings, but hadn't done it in a call center. So we've been working on that. But when we had our first conversations, we also asked if they would be interested in something using the text platform. The funder is based in Orlando, so they were already aware of the opioid program, and they were very excited by the idea. So we've been working on that. We're close to having it ready to go. And as we were talking through how we would want to approach it, we wanted to make it as, I guess, general as possible. So it wouldn't only be attached to our program, but it could be something that other agencies and other communities could implement if they wanted to. So we reached out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and asked if they would be okay with us using their Be the One campaign as the keyword to access the information. And we've used a lot of the content from their site. So we haven't quite gotten the final sort of sign off from them yet, but we're getting ready to send them all of the message tracks and information to make sure that they're comfortable with it. And our hope is that that will be up and running in the next couple of months.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, that was a lovely program to be part of and design and help be very much in line with getting people to the support that they need when they need it. And that I would love to see as we now finish up, Libby, we'll have another meeting. We'll have some more communications going out to the field, and we'll privilege this Be the One program a little bit as it's finally ready to go out and kind of great news on that front. I'm going to switch now over to Kristen because she's got so much to talk about. Kristen McLeod from Pathways in Ohio is really pushing out a lot of great stuff, school-based programs, pushing out information about getting to know 211. But really, there's a couple of special things on revamped surveys and stewardship marketing. Kristen, if you could talk to us a little bit about your November experience with the revamped surveys, and then let us all in on what stewardship marketing is all about, that would be terrific.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen McLeod. I'm Executive Director of Pathways of Central Ohio. We are I would guess, kind of small not-for-profit located in Newark, Ohio, which is east of Columbus. I'm Executive Director of the agency. I do not directly supervise our 211. I have a program director that thankfully does that. But I tend to get involved in our marketing of 211. So I guess the first thing I'll talk about is our surveys, and we're using the texting for our follow-up satisfaction surveys. We've been moving into that pretty heavily. I'm sure like many of you, you may ask a 211 caller if you can follow up with them by phone, and they might say yes, and then when your staff goes to call, they don't answer. I know personally I don't answer phone calls to numbers I don't recognize. so we decided to try texting as a way to do that. And we're still in, I think, the learning curve, but did learn that a shorter survey is better than a longer survey. And Michael at Prevention Pays was very helpful in helping us kind of think through what did we want to ask. And so we decided that the main thing we wanted to know was, did people get connected to services? So that's the very first question. And then our second question is, were they, satisfied with their experience with 211 or with the staff that they dealt with, and then would they call again? And so we just have those 3 questions and out, and we're done. And we really just started implementing the shorter survey. We'd had 6 questions before that, plus an introductory comment, and in just the month of January, we saw great improvement in responses. Still not where we want to be, but it's much better. And I also will say for the phone staff, they like being able to set up the text messages too. I think it's kind of disheartening for them sometimes to be making those calls and nobody answering, but the idea that they can set up a text is fairly appealing.
Right.
Is there anything else for me to say about that?
No, that's good to hear, and that you're getting better results as you learn more about how to implement these surveys, whether they be triggered by your staff or they be set up automatically based on referrals going out. The concept of stewardship marketing is going to be, many people have probably heard about it before, but in general, I'm just going to lay a blanket down. Stewardship marketing is when we use the people that we have in our providers, what we would call our resources, to become spokespeople for initiatives that we want to drive, such as the opioid program. So imagine, guys, if you would, that every single resource provider in all of the databases across the United States got a rack card that said text opioid to 898-211, and they all, everywhere in the United States, put that word out. And how strong and how powerful your database is when you turn it around and use it in this stewardship way. So, Kristen, why don't you explain that a little more than just the bullet point I gave?
Okay. Well, we started the concept, or started the development of community stewards back when we first became a 211 in 2007. And we knew we were not going to have a lot of money for marketing, as we all struggle with that. And so we wanted to figure out a way that we could do community. Is someone done? I don't know if someone can mute there. Make sure you're muted, I guess, if you're moving papers around. But we decided to try and involve the local community in helping to spread the word about 211. And again, this would be, I think, similar to the opioid texting program as well. But what we did was approached local businesses, churches, civic organizations, and said, hey, if you will help us spread the word about 211 to your organization, we will list you a link, as a thank you, we will list you on our website, and there will be a link there, to your business. And, promoted this as, a way for them to show that they care about their employees, they care about their community, they care about their fellow congregants. And if you'd like to look at it, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, somebody turned on another source of audio that's creating a little bit of a feedback. So we'll hopefully they'll.
Okay, I think we're good again. Yeah. As I like to say when I'm on these calls, mute early and mute often. But don't forget to take it off if you're speaking. lost my train there just a little bit. But so, I was going to say our website, if you want to take a look at this, is 211 Pathways. It's plural, PATHWAYS.org. And if you go to that, you can, there's a drop down menu and you can see where we have the stewardship program. There's on the drop down menu, 211 stewardship is one of the options.
Well, and Kristen, we think this has got horsepower like you can't believe. As we all seek to try to understand it better, we will send around that website link as a synopsis of today's PowerPoint. As a synopsis of today's presentation. So count on us to do that and get it to everybody. But suffice to say that just from the high-level theory, using those partners that you have already involved with you and privileging them in the way that you talked about as potential outreach collaborators is truly, I think, a power that's there waiting for us to tap into as we go through time. And we see that it's could be enormously powerful, especially for national issues. And we're going to talk about a national footprint. So relevant this all is. I'm going to skip along a little bit, Kristen. Thank you. Now,
Sure.
Code Blue is another example of a program, Kelly, up in New York, that was very, very timely as we've just gone through this horrible cold weather. Want to clue us in a little bit on that?
Sure, thanks, Tom. So I am the director of 211 up in Buffalo, New York, and much like most of the Midwest, we've been experiencing some extreme cold weather recently. So the Code Blue texting alerts actually started last winter when we were just starting to use the texting program and not quite sure that we had capacity within our own staffing yet to actually do the two-way communication channel for I&R, but we were thinking about how we can leverage it to push out messaging to our community members, things that are timely and that they need to know. So in our community, we do have a not insignificant number of folks who do not necessarily seek shelter unless it is extremely cold. And so we stand up shelters, temporary shelters, just for cold weather. So we wanted to figure out ways that we could let people know when these shelters were open. And there is a temperature threshold that is considered for that. And we also know, because we do after-hour homeless placement for our county, that a significant number of the folks who are experiencing homelessness still have cell phones and still have text messaging. So we developed a Code Blue text notification program where someone would text the keyword Code Blue Buffalo to opt in, and they would get a welcome message letting them know that if there's a Code Blue, the message will be sent out by 2 p.m. each day that Code Blue is called, and whatever the current situation is, or the most recent Code Blue. So you can see on the PowerPoint there, typically there's 2 messages that go out. There's one for the overnight, and then whether or not the daytime warming shelter is available as well. So we make those decisions at about 10 o'clock each day. We look at the National Weather Service, see if it's meeting those thresholds, and then send out the Code Blue text message. Recently, we had wind chills that were down to negative 26 degrees Fahrenheit. So the community of providers that work with the homeless population decided that they were going to do whatever they could to enforce bringing people in from the cold. So, not giving them a choice essentially of staying outside. So we added an extra notice to that. So this message, we have about 180 subscribers now who get this daily. So we wanted to include that message because it does include both service providers, the general public, and people who are experiencing homelessness themselves. During the fall, we have a Project Homeless Connect, a one-day event, and I was tabling there, and there was a guy who was telling me about how he usually chooses to stay outside, but it gets tough in the winter. And I said, do you have a cell phone? And he said, yeah. And he said, does it take text? And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, well, I can make sure you know when the Code Blues are open. The Code Blue shelters are open if you want to opt into this text thing. So we were able to opt him into that back in September so that when those shelters started opening, he got that notification. He was already enrolled. So that was pretty neat.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
thank
so
you.
cool. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Another very creative use of the service that's immediate, timely. And as we began texting services, just an anecdote here, way back when, we were rigorously evaluated by a lot of folks, as you can imagine. One of the comments was, well, wait a minute, not everybody's going to have a cell phone. Well, to the point that you just raised, what we found was that most everybody does, and it doesn't matter where they are. So it was good to hear you say that. Listen, with that, Kelly, thank you. I'm going to go now to a program that's a beautiful kind of related program, large in scope and coordinated with a lot of help from what we're going to see on the next slide called Community Impact Partners. And Melissa is going to speak to us a little bit about that. Melissa, are you ready to go?
I am. Thank you, Tom. So I'm Melissa Acree from NJ211 Partnership. I'm the executive director. And I just have to tell everybody, I am writing ferociously with all the unbelievably wonderful things that are being done with 211 and the 898-211. So I just have to say that. And I have questions. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about an idea that came to mind. We are participating in the Opioid Text platform, but something that came to mind because, like many 211s, New Jersey is involved during disasters, and we actually are written into the state plan to serve what they call the mass care group and the public health, as well as external communication. And I thought about how I've seen it used for Florence and Harvey when a disaster hit. And it just one day came to me. I knew I go to these meetings about disaster preparedness all the time. And I said, why don't we use the 898-211 system to generate preparedness? And what we would do with that is we would advertise and entice people to know it before you need it. So text Ready NJ and enter into our system. And we would ask 3 simple questions that would help the disaster planning and Office of Emergency Management to be ready. And that was the zip code if anyone was over 60 in their household, and also if anyone had a permanent disability. And with that, we could help play a further role in just getting messaging out monthly, getting people familiar with 211, whether it's having an emergency kit or, talking to your children about it, FEMA messaging that comes through monthly, just to keep people in the loop. And of course, during certain seasons, hurricane season versus snowstorm season. And a very important thing that we do at our 211 is we help people with disabilities enter into something called Register Ready. So counties are ready for their particular needs with ramps and medical equipment and other things. So that if you said you had a disability, we could also take those individuals and customize a message just to them, asking them to please register with the link right there, and or contact 211 to help you with the registration. And so the more I thought about this, the more it started to grow. And I shared it with our state partners at the Office of Emergency Management. And they spent over an hour and a half at our office just like talking it through. Tom was a part of that conversation. And they were very interested in in utilizing it. And so we're looking at working together so that the branding that they're using with their readiness messaging has some reflection in the marketing and branding that we'll use with Ready NJ. So it's something that was well received, and we're going to continue to build from there. They have a list of cell numbers from another program that they can actually just transfer to us, and we can push out the Ready NJ messaging as well as asking people to opt in.
Yeah, that's true. That listserv is about 500,000 people, and so just to double down on a couple of points there, it is a wonderful program that is already showing the efficacies of the text platform to do the intakes and to follow up with people over time, to learn about any acute emergencies and disasters, but also to learn about the essential services that 211 offer. And it's going to be an enormous bit of lifting 211 in pathways that are now middle-class pathways, and pathways now that are pathways to folks that may not have known about 211 before, but now it's much better to know it before you need it for a lot of folks. And this is really an exciting bit of work. We're making ready for airs where more of this will be shown. But as it relates to something that you said, and as it comes up on this next slide, Melissa, building collective impact partners or bridges back to your significant other agencies. Can you talk a little bit about that over this slide?
I would love to, because I have had numerous conversations with different partners, different size partners, government, United Ways, small counties, on how we can develop a keyword and develop a platform that meets their needs. And one of the first examples that's up there is something that Morris County Public Health came to 211 and said, look, we're doing in the month of December an initiative on STDs and getting the word out that people should be tested, especially the younger generation. And we want people to call into 211. However, we have absolutely no funding to give you. So I said, well, we'd love to help you out. So let's see how we can do that. And we proposed to them that the billboards that they were putting up would have 898-211 text STD, and it would then feature a message that led them to a page on our website, which had all of the listing of testing centers in the county. And therefore, they didn't even have to talk to anyone, because I think that the texting left more privacy, and it's sometimes embarrassing to call about something like that. We know that with mental health, and we know that with opioids. So I think it was the same thing. And they loved the idea, and it was a very simple, small type of programming of the platform with a few messages, again, leading them to the 211 website for other types of needs. So that was one example. And now they've actually put together a commercial, and they're still using the platform, the STD automated texting platform. The second is the State Department of Labor. So I had developed a new relationship with them at an outreach event, and had an opportunity to just give an overview of 211 after that. And it was probably in November they contacted us that, can you help us out, because our website where everybody applies for unemployment is going to be under some construction. The mainframe is being moved, and we're just afraid, what if it doesn't come up on Monday morning? Could you help us out? And so we talked it through, and I presented that the 898-211 platform could be a wonderful way to be very proactive, right? State government being proactive and saying on Monday morning that our system is experiencing some technical difficulty, but if you opt into NJ Labor, we'll send you a message as soon as it's up and running. And we'll keep you posted along the way. And so we put into place that system. It ended up they didn't need it, but what resulted from that is they realized how responsive we could be and how customizable and flexible. And we developed a contract with them for emergency notification. And it goes beyond just their website. It goes to if there's a government shutdown and something's happening that labor wants to get a message out. So it actually has built and strengthened and expanded our relationship with a state department. And, you know, the last that I mentioned previously when I talked about Ready NJ, the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management wants people with disabilities to be registered so counties really and truly can be prepared in advance. And very few people are registering. So the Ready NJ meets their need in that it certainly, we believe, will get a better response, just like we, I believe it was Kristen who might have mentioned how the follow-ups, people weren't answering the call, but they were certainly maybe texting back their follow-up. We're confident people will answer the question and go to the link when it comes to registering their disability with their county. So I just see so much potential for this platform and the 898-211 number to elevate 211 throughout the country with a vast array of partners and opportunities.
Yeah, and thank you for that. The government shutdown was interesting, wasn't it? Having a response for that and where people could go get benefits and help and support, kind of an immediate disaster that came out of nowhere, right? And sure, the flexibility, the ability to be able to be supportive, the idea that you introduced it for one service use that didn't really ever be needed, but they came back to you for a second. Service use is great to hear, and that they're willing to fund work like this is great to hear, because all 211s need to win like that as they go through time and promote themselves and get money coming in and do that resource development. To the extent now that we've seen as we move through the presentation, Alyssa, thank you so much. We're going to head up to the end of it. We do want time for any questions that come up, but this is not the end of anything. This is the beginning of something, because what we have is a need to keep information exchanges such as these going, establishing that we've got a prominence in areas such as human trafficking and emergency and disaster. And the reason we all got together today, the opioid epidemic, is so wonderful to have. The ability that we have to have a national response to that has been proved beyond measure by everyone who's been involved with the opioid program. The idea that we have captains that are ready to help other sites come on board. We want to make an exciting announcement to the field to open up the opioid program to every 211 site in the nation. We think that the time is right for that, and we are absolutely ready to take them on board, and primarily because of the work that you guys have all done to make that, you know, to get a year's worth of experience in. And when these new sites come on board, they won't have to go through some of the same things. We'll actually be capitalizing on some of that work that you did that's quite sustainable, which is lovely to see. In an effort to try to be very smart about that, we recognize that we need a steering committee. And this group represents a rich population to draw from for a steering committee, and that those people on the steering committee will be asked in a very informal way to give comment to issues such as the kind that you see here on this slide, especially as it relates to announcements being made to the field, the way things are structured, the development and the oversight of some of the way things work, any kind of national advocacy better coming from the steering committee than any one single voice. What are essential services? Look out towards the future. Where do we see things going? What kind of integration do we want? All of these things, there are roles for the steering committee to be part of and speak in a unified voice as we resolve to do certain things. And what'll happen is I think we'll have enormous success as history starts to repeat itself. You guys have been terrific in being able to get things along to this level. So first and foremost, we've got that to draw on. There's going to be national funding opportunities to come our way. We're going to want to make sure that we position ourselves well for those. Human trafficking and the opioid epidemic have been on every single news show I've watched over the last several months, and it's just a issue that's highly prioritized. So that, along with all the other wonderful things that we've heard about today, are just the beginning. And as we move forward into 2019 and beyond, we're going to have a lot to do, especially around integrated services and application program interfaces that are connected to other agencies, bridges to community partners, program development on our own. It's an exciting time. I have asked anyone who wants to be on that to identify themselves. So far, I'm happy to say that Melissa has, Acree, Melissa McCoy has from Iowa, Marioli has agreed from Georgia, and Kelly has agreed from New York. So I'm going to send out everybody emails that wants to be on this committee, because we're going to start with an agenda. And Melissa from Iowa, can you talk about how important this aspect of it is and where you've seen it go from the humble beginnings of the National Text Platform to where it is today?
Sure. This is Melissa from United Way of Central Iowa, and we were asked at the very beginning of all of this to come on board and test it out, see what kind of things that we would find if it was useful for. So not only did we start with the opioid texting platform, we went along and did like what any of you guys have done with your STD programs or the emergency management programs, but we brought it more so in-house with our United Way and our community impact department, and took it to a program called Bridges to Success. And so that's one of our programs that we use in conjunction with our area community college. And we created that group. And so we've been able to grow not only from, 2 to 4 members on these texting platforms up to last year we did 235 different texts that came in, and we're doing the two-way texting and pushing it. It has gotten so much easier, and Tom and his team are wonderful to work with. And when we have issues, they're there to help you work through it or think about a different way of doing it, and they provide you with the support that you need. So even just on the national operating group level through the 211s, they're aware of what's going on through worldwide and seeing the difference that we've made in the communities. So for us, not only in our polk, I've got 15 counties here in Iowa, we're expanding it to all 99 counties in Iowa, and I'm happy to hear that Charlene in Wisconsin, they've got their whole state on board too. So there's just so much more that we can do, and I'm so excited to see all the different ways that you guys, that Tom's brought together on this call, have went, and what we have to look forward to the future.
Thank you so much. We're getting to the point where this meeting is going to wind down into its last 10 minutes. But the good salesman in me wants to see if anybody wants to raise their hand to be on the steering committee. Okay. The 4 that we have are the 4 that we're going to go with. Thank you so much on that. And we will always have that position available for anyone who would like to participate. The questions and answers now could, if there are questions, if people would like to ask specific questions about specific things that they hear, please just go ahead and take it right on right now.
Hey, Tom, this is Melissa from Des Moines, and I just had one quick question. Did you say that the monthly messaging through New Jersey with Melissa A., has 500,000 subscribers or 50,000, or what was her subscribers?
I can answer that, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
No problem. We're starting off, and we're in the process of uploading probably, I don't know if it's 20,000 of our own callers who have agreed to text messaging. We're going to load them in. But the Office of Emergency Management has another notification system that they use for their first responders. And that one, and it's used in neighborhoods, that has 490,000 individuals loaded into it. So the conversation was, can OEM take those and transfer those to the Ready NJ? And so we're meeting to finalize all of that, but that would be huge to get the message out.
Okay, and so then are you just sending out a monthly message to those individuals, or is it more so for, code, well, what we have here is code red or the emergencies, it's just a monthly messaging system?
So good question. It will definitely be monthly messaging about preparedness. And one thing that I didn't mention, everyone who's in that system, should a disaster hit in New Jersey and it's statewide, we just send a message. Let's say it's called Hurricane Sally. We would then tell all those people to start to opt into Sally so that they would start to get all the messaging that's relevant to that particular disaster. But Ready NJ will stand as the preparedness messaging, and monthly messaging will follow.
Thank you, Melissa. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Terrific new program. Well, guys, I have to just thank everybody as it relates to the content that was put up here today. It was a lot and also well shaped and formed. So really appreciate that. As we move to the final couple of minutes here, I think unless there's any other questions, another little bit of housekeeping. We'll follow up with a synopsis of this meeting to everyone. For the sites that are still in the process of their data transformations and uploading, we'll be right there with you guys along the way. And the new ways to use texting and the new ways to expand the opioid program with customization and personalization are something that we're really excited about going forward. We do have that announcement to make to the field, so the steering committee will be coming back to you with that kind of as one of their first collective works. And as we go through time, we'll convene on a regular basis so we can update one another and keep everybody in this kind of a loop, because it felt to me like there was just a lot of good information exchanged. And that the two things that are coming true here, that these programs can be good at a site level, and that if we do enough of them and enough people join in, that we can develop some national national footprint that can be utilized and might attract some real good funding from partners and some sustainability, and of course lifting 211 up all the while. So with that, unless there's any other questions, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. There is the PowerPoint on the, there is a handout, so you can take that along with you and rely on all of us to be open for communication right on across this network. Everybody has everybody's email addresses, and more soon. If that's a good way to end, I'd love to. Unless there's any more questions, guys, now's the time.
I had one quick.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had a quick question about the follow-up. If someone says they were not connected to health, is there any type of follow-up question to indicate why they weren't eligible, there was a lack of funding? Is any other type of information collected?
That question is headed towards a general question that I can answer from experience with other sites that are not on this call. But let me just see if I get the question right. The question is, if someone's not eligible and you want to follow up with them anyhow, can you? Is that the question?
Well, the question was for, I'm looking at my notes. I think it was it Kelly that was doing the follow-up questions? They stopped calling, or was it Kristen? They stopped doing follow-up calls, right?
Yeah, Kristen.
And they shortened it to 3 simple questions. And my question was, is there a follow-up to the first question they ask about, were you able to connect to services?
This is Betsy in South Dakota, and we do the text survey, and we completely agree it's much better than phone calls, much better use of staff time, and much better response rate. We ask that question, did you contact at least one of the referrals given to you by 211? If they say yes, then we ask the result. Text 1 to receive assistance, text 2 no appointments available, text 3 not eligible, text 4 waitlisted, text 5 not sure. Depending on how they respond, like let's say they didn't follow up or they didn't contact one of the referrals, then they get the question, what happened? You received help from family or friends, you haven't had time, you got discouraged, or you're not sure. So we do have a conditional question that asks them why they didn't follow through with one of the referrals given.
Very good. Thank you, Betsy.
Yep.
If I can jump in here, this is Libby in Florida, and we do something very similar to what Betsy just described, but I was really interested in hearing about the shorter thing because we also definitely see responses kind of drop off with the more questions. So we have been debating about, would we be better off having less detail but more response, or, fewer responses with more detail. So that's something that we're experimenting with right now.
This is Kristen from Pathways. I was the one talking about going to the shorter number of questions. And I think if someone replies to, which is a no, they get an automated reply inviting them to call or text us so that we can look for more resources. So that's our kind of quick and dirty way we're doing it right now. But our experience was we were losing people. They might answer the first question when we had that series of 6 questions. I think the very first question we had was, did you call 211? Did you recently call or text 211? Well, Michael pointed out to us that, well, obviously, yes, they did, or you wouldn't be sending them a survey. So he was, again, he's a millennial, and he was very encouraging brevity as much as possible. So, this is evolving. I mean, we may decide 2 months from now, we're still not getting what we want, and tinker with it again. But I have to give a pat on the back to Michael and the rest of the staff at EMS and Prevention PACE, because they are so easy to work with, and even someone like me that's kind of challenged on how this all works, they're very patient, and I appreciate that.
Can I ask a follow-up question along the same lines? This is Kelly in Buffalo. Does the text follow-up tie back into your I&R software at all so that you could see whether or not there are trends with maybe certain needs not being met after referrals have been made, or if an agency is doing like more person-centered I&R, that they are tracking that person longitudinally, that they can see what their follow-up results were?
This is Kristen again. When we do the text follow-ups, we use Refernet, so it does capture that information back. But I got to be honest, I'm still working to understand the data I'm getting at this point. So we're not that far along on the process. I mean, we can see the responses, but our big issue right now was just trying to get responses, you know, and now that we're starting to have a better response rate, you know, we'll probably be going into that next logical step that you're bringing up of, you know, where are things falling apart? Are there unmet needs? You know, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. And Kelly, to your question directly, we can make that work with Refernet because they've taken that to the level of integration that they have.
Right.
One of the things that all of our captains are going to do with us over time, and where we're going to go with the steering committee, is to remake some of the requests that we have of other CRMs to put that level of integration in, because it's been with them for quite some time, and it's very easy to do, and we can help them. And so while we can't say that that's available for you at the moment at the same with the same level of writing into your CRM, we can tell you that your CRM has technical documents that if they choose to move forward with this and it becomes important to you, like the getting out of it, like Iowa did with icarol, getting out a special report that exports data in the structure that we want, that's available for the National Text Platform and open resources. It's a uniform data structure. But there's some advocacy that we need from this group as it relates to steering committee so that we can make all that stuff happen. So it's a little bit uneven. To answer to your question, a short answer to your question, it's uneven a little bit at this point, but we're working in 2019 to even it all up.
Great. And just as far as the follow-up surveys go, is there a repository where we could see the different examples or what different communities have set up for themselves so that we could maybe choose from a menu versus recreating something?
Oh, gosh, yes. Oh, certainly. As is the case with all these programs that we're sharing. You know, whether it be a survey, whether it be a program, whether it be a routine, whether it be anything that we have is open to you. So yes, and as we start to collect information, Jonathan Hawley's here too. You know, we've been trying to keep up two things. One, a Google Drive, and two, a directory, a private directory where we can load things like artwork, and we can load things like protocol, and we can load things like surveys and things of that nature. So there's already kind of some sharing going on that way, Kelly, now. And we'll direct you to the Google Drive where I think those are. So that'd be good. I know we're getting right to the end of the time here. Tim, you had one other question?
Yeah, you'd mentioned earlier about you know, trying to get us better connected. Is that something you could start setting up as kind of like a you know, group email list or a group?
Say what, Tim? Now a reconciliation of today's meeting?
Well, just it would be nice if we had like a group email that we could, you know, post comments, questions
sure,
to each other. So I just didn't know if you could set that up for us.
Not yet, but I will.
Okay.
Not yet, but I will. Jonathan Hawley wanted to make a comment? Or it looks like Melissa McCoy has a question.
This is Melissa. I did. I'm sorry. That was from earlier.
Okay.
Just going to comment real quickly on the integration. So the document is in the Google Drive that explains how we are able to connect to different CRMs, and that document has been updated consistently, and it has the most current information in it. It's on the Google Drive. It's under API files. So there's a folder called API files, and it has in it descriptions of each of the ways that we're connecting to CRMs. And one of those ways is passing survey data from our system to the CRM. And as Tom had mentioned, you know, we're supporting that with Refernet. However, I know that some of the other CRMs have begun to look at that because the capacity's there, we're supporting it, and it's not terribly difficult to get to that next level of support. We think it's going to really be important because it's not just about sticking data so that, you know, you're not replicating or duplicating the methods and taking data out of Provision Base to put into your CRM, but it's also could be the result of triggering events, right? That this person indicated they didn't get help. And so in my CRM, because I got that data sent to my CRM database, now the CRM can flag it and go, hey, this guy might need a callback, or this person might need a text back, to then go back in and work with that individual on a deeper level. And it might open up a whole new avenue of I&R as a result, because of this notion that you're looking at that end user on a longitudinal way, that they're going to get help, and that help might be somewhat fulfilled at that certain point, but then not completely. And that this survey is kind of like that analysis of how did we do, and that it maybe isn't an end, it might be just the beginning.
That's great. Thank you, Johnny, for that. And we're 3 minutes over. I'm sensitive to this time thing. You've put an hour and a half in today. Thank you so much for that. Are there any other questions that we've missed? I'll take that as a no, and we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Take care.